Well, hello and welcome to our little devotion for Read Through the Bible for the Year for March 4th. And as promised, we're going to take a little look at Numbers. It is helpful to do that because it can get a little bit arduous reading the book of Numbers with all of the different, numbers. The interesting thing about Numbers, though, is that the name Numbers is an English translation of the Greek title, and that title was given to it because of the census that is found that we've been reading in the past couple of days, and also we see it in chapter 26. However, the fifth word of the book, Bamidbar, in the wilderness, is the Hebrew title, and that is actually a more fitting title. It better deals with the subject matter of the book. So, as we look at the book of Numbers, don't think of it as just one number after another. Think of it as the 40 years that Israel spent in the wilderness between Mount Sinai and the plains of Moab. So I'll give you a quick overview of the entire book of Numbers. First of all, we see that Numbers begins, as we read, with a series of directions organizing the people of Israel to march from Sinai to the Promised Land. So the tribes are counted and their arrangement is specified around the camp, and the unclean are expelled from the community, and the altar and the Levites are dedicated to the Lord to serve God. They celebrate a second Passover in the book of Numbers, and at last the nation is ready to begin the journey to Canaan. 20 days later, the journey begins, interestingly enough, and they encounter difficulties, not unexpectedly, but they safely reach Kadesh on the border of Canaan. From Kadesh, 12 spies are sent out, but their report is so discouraging that the people propose returning to Egypt. Well, that's not a good thing. God threatens to annihilate them, but is persuaded by Moses' intercession to commute their sentence, so to speak, to 40 years of wandering in the wilderness. Then we get to chapter 15 in the book of Numbers, and there are laws about cereal offerings, libations or drink offerings. There are instructions detailing high-handed sins and tassels on garments. And then in chapters 16 through 17, it talks about several different rebellions against the prerogatives of the priests and Levites. And then in chapter 18, it talks about the offerings that they are to receive. 19 talks about purification after death. In chapters 20 through 21, after an interval of nearly 40 years, the movement toward the promised land resumes, and we see them starting to have conquests over the Canaanites and the Negev, and against the Amorites and the Transjordan, the area east of the Jordan River. So the rest of the book of Numbers then relates to what happened to Israel as they waded across the Jordan opposite the city of Jericho, the oldest city in the world, as we visited it on our trip to the Holy Land last summer. These chapters include the very interesting Balaam and all that happened in regard to him, and also the defeat of the Midianites and the request of the tribes of Gad, Reuben, and Manasseh to settle in the Transjordan. And then at last, there is a list in chapter 33 of all the places the Israelites camped, and also a final set of laws dealing with the distribution of the promised land. As we talked about the year of Jubilee and so forth, we mentioned that it was very clearly specified where each tribe would be located within the promised land. So I hope that kind of bird's eye view of the book of Numbers is helpful in kind of finding all of the meaning in all of the numbers in Numbers. We'll talk a little bit more about the structure of the book of Numbers and actually get into some of the readings for tomorrow once tomorrow comes. But this is enough for one day to think about the whole book of Numbers to be sure. God's blessings to you, and may He watch over you, keep you in His gracious care. I've got a little church service tonight and then a Zoom meeting, and then I'll get to bed. And I hope and pray when it's time for you to get to bed also that you have a peaceful and a restful evening and are strengthened for the day ahead. God bless and keep you in His care. Bye.